Ndewonu. Good morning, Ebobolonono. I am so honored to welcome you again to this wonderful program. I am excited that we are walking amongst the living. We are the lucky few. I have to wear these. You may think I'm wearing shades, but they're not. They're actually glasses. It helps me with the glare of the screen. And I am Okedibio Dr. Wonyo Husimere. For those of you who don't know me, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Chism Live, our internet talking space for the Global Faith Ministries of Chism, a ministry of the Godian religion founded by Ahai K.O.K. Onyoha, my father, and of course with him, Noha Ngozi Onyoha, my mother. Both of them died. My father passed away at the age of 80, so he made it to ancestorhood. And my mother passed at the age of 91, so she's really in there. So anyway, before we get started, let me just invite you to follow us on African Spirituality, Chism Live on YouTube, and follow us on Chism. Go to our website, chism.org, CHI-ISM.org, and register for membership. Doesn't cost you anything. Just go there and register so that we have a list of all the individuals. Now, we have a lot of individuals on Facebook page, so you can join us there. Follow us on Global Faith Ministries of Chiism, Godianism on Facebook, and you can have conversations with us there. And I want to, before I go any further, let me just welcome some of our friends who visit us all the time. Ndewo Kunna Charles, I see you again. Thank you for joining us. Charles says Ndewo, yes, Ndewo to all of you. Ndewo Mato. And Nosferatu Ndewo, thank you for joining us. And of course, Charles says, Doctor, you're looking good. Thank you. You're such a motivational factor in my life. Thank you for your compliments. I appreciate you. Before we go any further, let me obviously introduce my partners. My co-host, Dibia Ochwaja, Yudi on your heart. Dibia Ndewo. Okay, let me add him.
Yeah, how's everything? How's everybody?
Thank you.
My absence last week, I had some challenges with electricity. We had a storm, so it knocked out the power. So I wasn't able to join you on the show, but I'm here. I'm ready to go.
And I'm also, thank you for joining us. We're certainly glad you're here today. Yeah. And of course, I would like to add to the stream, Chiodozie Okoro, Dibia Chiodozie Okoro, who's going to lead us today in libations. So wherever you are, get comfortable. You know, libations is so critical. It's part of our spirituality. So if you want to be a part of this spirituality, you have to be comfortable with pouring libations. So Dibia, please take it away.
Yeah, I welcome everybody to the program. Divya Ochoja, nice to see you. Happy New Year to all of us. Usually I should have my cup full, but we are not physically together, but we are together in spirit. So that's why I have it this way, so that when I take my little sip, I can pour as communion, pour the remaining. Usually I'm not used to the cocktail, so I go up with the prayer. Nna m bili gị ọbasi kele ọwawara ụwa eke kere ụwa kere efete ka eburu ibu ke okirikiri gị nwa bụ nshi mbido na isi nyere niile ma nwe nshi mbido nwe nshi njedebe ka mkpọkọ gị ụbọchị taa bụ ka anyị na-akpọkọ gị anyị ụmụ chiizi anyị na-akpọkọ gị sọmụnwa Chidozie Okoro na-akpọkọ gị sị gị gbatuo ga-egozi ụbọchị taa mma na ndị mmụọ ndị dị esi ha lekọta ụwa anyanwụ gburugburu ndị mmụọ ndị dị esi ha lekọta ụwa anyị bi n'ime ya. Mmụọ niile na-achị ala Igbo na-achị Afrịka asị m unu nzukọ. Mmụọ niile na-achị na-achị Amerịka ebe ndị ụmụnna anyị ha bi asị m unu nzukọ. Ndị egede, ndị mbụ, ndị nne na nna, ndị ichie asị m unu gbazuo. Keke Onyeọnya nne anyị nwunye ya asị m unu nzukọ. Shaka the Zulu, the great ancestors of Africa asị m unu nzukọ. ara uru nzukọ ndị mmụọ nkịtị nzọmụkwụ ndị mmụọ ka mkpọkọ unu asị m unu nzukọ n'ụbọchị taa so ụbọchị taa bụ mkpọkọ ụbọchị taa mmụọ na-achị ụbọchị taa mmụọ na-achị akpọ ya asị m maka ọya dị mmadụ ndụ bịa mmụọ Chukwu okike abịa mmadụ mma asị m anya akpọkọ unu so ihe niile anyị ga-eme taa ọya ga mma ihe niile ga-akpazi mma kazie mma hazicha mma unu akpabi elu ụka nwezikwa mkpagharị anyị akpọkọ unu anyị asị unu were mmanya ihe niile dị n'ọhọ
Yagazie, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can't get anything started until you've called upon the ancestors and you called upon ChinEke. Certainly, the phone that's ringing in the background, I'm not sure, it's not mine.
No, it's mine. I will silence it.
Okay. But it was music. It provided music while you were pouring libations, so we don't mind. Somehow we fit into the picture. Hey, you don't know who was calling. Maybe ChinEke was saying, "I hear you." You know.
Yes.
So we don't have any problems with that. But
sure.
This is a very important program that we have today. Is blind faith a virtue? I want to share. Before we get started with that discussion, I think it's important. Let me just lay the foundation why this is an important conversation, because part of the problems that we're having as a people is not just something that other people are doing to us. It is what we are allowing to be done to us. It is it's just quite tragic, you know, how these so-called spiritual leaders who are supposed to be helping people, you know, they play on people's devotion, they play on people's fear, and they play on people's faith, you know, the faith that people place in the hands of these pastors. You know, let me be clear, there are some very good pastors. There are some people who are doing good things in the world, but they are mortals. They are mere mortals that we somehow think they can do for us what God can do. Think about that. You know, these are mere mortals who assert that they are connected to divine mind, to ChinEke, to Olodumare, to Tamil, to whomsoever, mostly to foreign religious icons. Their activities, their actions, what they've led people to do have led to many deaths and destruction. And yet, we seem not to be bothered by all of that. Somehow, the more destruction they create, somehow we still go to them. So the question is, how blind is our faith? How blind is faith? We continue to follow the guidance of cold-hearted monsters. That's what some of these people are. These so-called men of God, they are not men of God. If God can't do it, it cannot be done. They cannot fool you and tell you that what you have prayed for, what you've worked hard for, cannot happen. And somehow they're the ones who are going to make it happen. They lead their congregations to engage in despicable behavior. Sometimes it has led to death. So we're going to talk about this despicable behaviors that these so-called pastors engage in or engage our people in. But I'm going to show you this video. It was something that's been circulating. Perhaps you guys have seen it. I'm going to show you two. Then we can have a conversation after you watch this video. Now, I have difficulty believing that my people can be this gullible. So let me share this with you. Now, before we talk about this, before you see this video, let me lay the scenario. This is a church that was built, as you can see, sloppily. It's a two-story building. And the people in church are noticing that it's breaking up. Something is not right. And some of them are beginning to leave the church, but the pastor told them not to leave, that they should stay because Jesus would take care of it. because the Lord will take care of it. This is blind faith in action. So all these people refuse to leave the church, and here is the outcome of that.
That was still the four. Make them come down for that place. This thing, this thing just. Sorry.
Now, let me ask you too, what kind of madness is this? What kind of madness is this, I'm asking you?
I don't even know if I consider that madness. I just think I was discussing earlier on with Professor Okoro. This damage happened a long time ago where common sense just walks out on you. You know, mind work. There's a band called Blow back in the 70s. You probably heard of it, Dr. Okoro. Anyway, there's a song called Mind Walk. The mind just walked out on us. There's no madness. It's just there's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there where 1 + 1 is not 2, right? The level of rationale that it takes for you to just enjoy your life or live as a human being is gone. You know the building is falling. You can see that it's falling. But somewhere along the line, you lose the understanding that if the building falls on your head, it will kill you. And you're watching the building crumple. Then somebody tells you, don't worry about it. There's this magic from the skies that is going to come in and make sure that this building that is crumbling right in front of you will not crumble. You should stay in there. Trust and confidence in somebody or something. That's what faith, that's the definition of faith. Faith does not necessarily require you not to ask questions. Seek and you shall find. Question everything. No matter how much faith you have in something, just make sure that you still have common sense, that it still exists. What you see is a population of people with no common sense or guilt. At least those in the majority don't have it. Those in the minority survived. They are the ones that came out of that church. They are the ones that understood, yes, there's a God, but I'm still in control of what happens to me to a certain extent. I just can't live it up to this guy in the sky with a gray beard or whatever.
At that moment, those who left, they practice what we talk about, and that is listen inwardly.
Yeah, that's the common sense thing.
You will hear ChinEke tell you what to do. Chiodozie, go ahead.
Everyone, Dibia charge, okay, Dibia. You know, what is wrong here is that we have to trace our minds back to when these battles started between spirituality and religion. That is almost 3,000, 4,000 years back, when Pharaoh Amenhotep IV decided to denigrate the Egyptian pluralist spiritual system and instituted religion. They believe in one God. That's when religion started. And then that means a denial of the individual to search into self, discover self, and link self with Chukwukikabiaba, the cosmic force, or what I call the spirit force or universal force field. That is what spirituality is. Everybody has to discover self in connection with the ubiquitous chi, so that I discover that I am the micro in the macro, and then I'll be guided by the cosmic force itself. And part of this cosmic force are the ancestors, are the great spirits. But what Akhenaten did was that he denied everybody that identity and freedom, and founded a system whereby a group of people do the thinking for you. Although immediately after he passed on, Egyptians revolted against it, but the problem is that beginning with Moses, that system became institutionalized, and then Christianity keyed into it, and Islam keyed into it, and with Islam, it became a prima donna, a finality. Nobody is allowed to think anymore. You just key into the system created by the human being. That is where the problem lies. And so because of that, faith has been defined as something supernatural. There's nothing supernatural about faith. It's a human thing. Animals don't practice faith. There's no other entity in the world that practices faith other than human beings. So it requires reason, imagination to practice faith. We can, and the problem is that we have bifurcated, divided the human abilities as if faith should superintend reason. Faith without reason and imagination is empty. And reason and imagination without faith has no fire. They have no fire. So they all work intertwined simultaneously. So this device I'm holding can only perform the function keyed into it. It cannot perform any function outside it. So faith is purely a human thing.
It is.
And without the ability of imagination to project into the unknown, faith has been defined as believing that which you do not see. How do you practice believe in what you do not see without imagination, without reason?
You know, Professor, you are absolutely right. See, again, everything sometimes just boils down to education. Remember at the beginning, before the show started, I was talking about this is Bello, this is Bintu.
Sure.
Remember I was talking about that? Okay.
Sure.
It's all about the education process. For one thing, they're not, at least in the modern world, you don't hear about too many churches in Europe or anywhere else in the world collapsing. Because number one, it is, even though it's a business and we understand that, but the number of churches that are built in Europe is so minimal. And as a matter of fact, some of those churches are so old that you don't really see new churches coming up in Europe. Europe gave us Christianity. You understand?
No. But the point it was realized is that at the point Europe was exporting Christianity to us, they had rejected it.
They had. I'm trying to get to that point. I'm trying to get to, a point.
Yeah.
We have totally disassociated ourselves from the, what's the word for it? From the actual meaning of religion, the etymology of the word religion. Religion simply means a duty that a person feels compelled to perform in reverence to something greater than themselves. And that something is the Almighty Creator. You can call it ChinEke, Olodumare, Tamuna, whatever it is.
That's religion really steeped into spirituality, because religion without spirituality is empty.
It's empty. Once you realize that you are not responsible for the forces of nature, the air you breathe, the animals you eat, all that stuff, religion becomes automatic in you because you are now ascribing that to something greater than yourself. That's number one, right? And that's why you have this reverence for a spirit that is greater than you. That's religion in its etymology. That's the definition of what religion is. Christianity, Islam, and all that are philosophies that were put together in the on the premise of allowing people to walk in the path of the Almighty Creator, behave a certain way. so that we are not all acting towards each other as animals. African spirituality is an individual exercise. Yeah. It is the person. That's why he said that the prayer that is said in private is more important than the one that is said in the synagogue.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, that's one angle. That's one angle. The real difference between African spirituality and Christianity is that what Christianity and Islam have done is to say there's only one way to approach that ubiquitous spirit.
Yeah.
It is through Christ or through Islam. But so that's why they are monotheism does not mean believe in one God. Monotheism means believe in only one way to one God. Spirituality says one God, but many ways. So myself, yourself, Dibia, and every other individual, first understand yourself as ways to God.
Yeah.
So that is why spirituality brings about unity. So what our ancestors practiced was not polytheism, but plural theism. One God, many ways. That's why there can be peace.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where the misconception comes, when they tell you that the African worships many gods.
No, we don't.
Without understanding.
Like I tell them, when I start Igbo language, there's no Igbo word for small god.
No, of course it's not. Here's the thing.
We don't have it.
Here's the thing.
It is an interpretation of Christianity and Islam into our own culture.
But here's the thing. Except for the sword and the gun, religions have one thing in common. All of them have one thing in common. There's nothing about one religion that is different from the other one, except the approach, the way to, get to ChinEke or whatever. Religion, as far as the Europeans and Islam and all that, all these institutions are concerned about control. They're concerned about controlling the population.
That is the point. That's the point. When Akhenaton founded one religion, he did not find it for issue of self-discovery. He founded it for political, economic reasons.
It's politics. It's politics.
And that's the big difference between spirituality and religion. And since that is why, if you see when King Justus of Rome prescribed the ancient Egyptian worship and brought in, started institutionalizing Roman pattern of worship that crystallized under Constantine, the first thing Constantine did was to ensure that the spirituality of ancient Egypt that put the woman at the head of the Trinity was supplanted by the patriarchal hierarchy of the Romans. So
yeah, they had
the Trinity, so the Trinity became full holy male. Then they had to create a place for the woman, the mother of God. Now, before
all that, they had there's something called the Donatist movement of Carthage, right? They went against, you've heard about it, you know about that. They went against Constantine. And the reason why they went against Constantine was because there was a schism in the church between those people that believe that Christ was the Son of God and those people that say that, no, he's human. You can't be human and be Son of God at the same time. Yeah, those people, the Donatists in Carthage or in North Africa, that believe that penance is what's important when it comes to Catholicism, were the ones that Constantine went against, because those people that were in Rome, as far as Constantine was concerned, were the ones that were willing to serve in the military. They were the ones that were willing to pay taxes. They were the ones that were willing to subject themselves to the will of Emperor Constantine. And so he sided with the Roman bishops against Carthage and destroyed the Donatist movement. Then comes the Nicene Council of 325 AD, where the premise of Christianism was established, dealing with the stuff that you were talking about. But the larger point I'm trying to make here is this. The reason why we see some of these things happening is simply because of the fact that we have walked out of our own spirituality, our cultural leanings when it comes to supplication to the Almighty God. Believing the preacher over your own common sense, believing that if you listen closely with your ears to the ground, you will hear the footsteps of ants. Not listening to your own mind, not listening to what your eye is telling you, that you should get out of that building, having blind faith in the preacher because the institution is more important than you, or because you don't want to offend family members or friends or act as if you're smarter than the preacher, because you don't want to use your common sense and do what's most important, which is to question everything. That is why those people are dead. What happened in Europe happened in Europe. If we had good educational system from the time when you and I were talking about it, you mentioned it, when you catch them in the womb, you wouldn't have this kind of situation. The problem is our government is Christianized, our spirituality is Christianized, our parenting is Christianized, everything that about the black man and woman is Christianized. Jesus loves me. This I know. I get it in school. I got it at home. I get it in church. I don't get anything that has to do with African spirituality that allows me to understand who I am on a spiritual level, and what supplication to the Almighty ChinEke actually means is responsible for what you see. So it's not just blind faith. It is also a level of hypnotism that started from the womb into adulthood. Only those people that paid attention to their environment got out of that church. Only people that paid attention to the preacher himself or herself, people that understood that there's something that ain't quite right about the preacher telling me to stay in church, they got out. Suddenly, they didn't have blind faith. Those people without blind faith got out of that place, and those people that had faith.
Yeah, you see, to support what you are saying, we don't see this sort of events happen with the Orthodox churches.
You don't.
Yeah, because for the Orthodox churches, reason and faith must go together.
Thank you.
Reason, faith, imagination. They are still close to spirituality. So you see these sort of things happening with Pentecostalism, whereby reason has been completely, reason and imagination have been completely severed away from faith. So that what you have now is bare, empty faith. So that is the problem we have on ground. The greatest problem we have on ground today in Africa is Pentecostalism. And that is why when the first time I went to Deeper Life, then I was in year 3 in the university, and I was taken to Deeper Life, and then the founder of Deeper Life was preaching, and he said, if you want to have faith, if you have reason, remove your reason from here and put it behind. And then immediately I said, if that is so, how do you even recognize and understand what you are preaching without reason? So that was how I canceled out that particular church. And that is when I started researching into Pentecostalism. And I discovered that Pentecostalism is nothing but just bonfireism. That is Christianity taken to its worst extreme. And reason and imagination, other higher faculties of the mind, taken away. So to sum up this talk, I remember one of the professors that taught me, I wouldn't mention his name because I pay him a lot of respect. When he was caught up with this bug of Pentecostalism, he forgot all he had taught us and started preaching faith to me. And then what I did was to analyze the human entity, the subconscious, the conscious. Then the conscious, the faculty of imagination is role, the faculty of the understanding is role, the faculty of reason is role, and sensibility is role. Faith is part of sensibility because faith has to do with willpower, the heart. It has nothing to do with the mind. It has to do with the heart. I love, I have faith, I hate, I decide, I choose. It's something of the heart. It's not something of the mind. So these and these have to work together. So I'm asking, which, even when we go to biology, which part of the body, which part of the organ coordinates the whole part of the body? Is the brain, not the heart. So how are you asking me to let the heart decide for the brain? And that's how the conversation.
There's nothing more that disarms somebody who's lying to you that you throwing the truth in front of them, and they can't deal with it.
You know what?
Before we continue, I want to show you another video that will show you what some people. I shared it on my Facebook page. So some people have already seen this, but I don't think you guys have seen it. But I do want you to comment on it because this involves not only impaired judgment on the part of the individuals being abused, but also impaired judgment on the part of the audience. All right. When you watch this, you will see that the pastor definitely is a con man. Is con man. He is playing on on the faith of these people. But let me say one thing before I show this video. It's important to note that a lot of people have faith because sometimes that's all they've got. Sometimes life has dealt them such a big blow. They can't go right, they can't go left, they can't go behind. They don't know what to do. So they just have faith that something is going to have to give. Something is going to make their lives better. You know, at some point, it's not going to continue this way. So you say, I have faith, I have faith. And so to some degree, it's a healthy practice to have faith in something positive or positive outcomes. That's just an intellectual conversation, but without the historical facts and all the everything. When you find a lot of people who are going to these churches and going to putting their trust in some of these men of God and what have you, these are people who are in the valley. They have nowhere else to go. Now, I'm not saying all of them. There are some of them who should know better. And Chiodozie, you said it. There are people who have PhDs, 3, 4, but they are even more ignorant than a 5-year-old. You cannot, like you said, think with the heart when it's supposed to be the brain that you're supposed to use. Nobody should convince you to abandon your curiosity, your God-given right to research and find out answers. Anybody who convinces you that you can't do that doesn't mean you any well. The most powerful tool in the hands of an oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Many of these people are so oppressed, they don't know it. They are in the valley and they don't have a choice. So I want to show you this, that as a woman watching this, it was heart-wrenching to see this. So let me share this with you. So it took a little while to pull it up. There we go.
Hallelujah. Your friend said, "Wash your sleeping mommy, or your baby." I mean, this is the original hand match. Hey. Hallelujah. Amen. 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 Amen.
So I don't even know where to start.
I don't either.
I don't-
Here's what I know. Let
Where
me
do
just
you
say.
start?
Let me just say this. I don't know.
It's not funny.
Dr. Koro will probably do a better job on this one than I can, because I don't know that. But I don't know. Proselytize, right? Proselytism, right? Common sense doesn't fit into that. You know, you can't be aware and expect economic, benefits from religion. Most of the people that you see in these videos and that we see, and I say most because, like, the professor said, there's some people that should know better, but act like, they're just totally out of it. Are people that are downtrodden, people that don't have economic, they don't see an economic future for themselves, people that figured if they have blind faith that maybe it will help them to adjudicate their current economic situation. People that have been lied to, both in religion and in politics. We have a society in Africa where moralism and what it means to be successful has been redefined to mean money. It's not really about raising a family with morals, being able to raise children that become upright members of the society, as it was when our parents were coming up, as it was before independence, as it was before Protestantism, came into play. Even though we had Orthodox, Christianism in Nigeria, particularly the Catholic Church, which is the main orthodoxy of Christianism, then you have the offshoots like the Anglican Church. Most of their power comes from Rome. It wasn't individual. Rome controlled the diocese and what they did. The individual didn't control it. And whatever monies that was brought into the church took care of church business. The rest of it went to the Roman Catholic Church. In modern day Christianism, with the Protestant religion, it's about that particular church body and the preacher. They drive their own economic engine and they do whatever it takes to bring money into their fold. And most of that money goes to the preacher. You're looking at really two different institutions here. One is local, the other one is overseen by the Catholic Church, by the Vatican in Rome. Every Protestant church is an individual entity. It's a private entity. They have a body that controls what they do in terms of the rules and regulations that guide their activities, but there's really no holds barred in terms of what you have to do to earn money as an independent body. Every other street where I come from in Omaha has pretty much a church. You come to the United States, there are churches everywhere. Every neighborhood has about 5, 6, 7, 8 churches. It's just all over the place. No matter where you go, they're all individual churches, individual bodies, beholden to no one. They do whatever it takes to get money into their coffers. And when you have a situation where you have a population that is downtrodden, where the leadership is also part of this whole con. You can't even run for political office in Nigeria unless the Catholic Church or the bishop or the preacher, somebody's going to have to bless you from the church for you to be viewed as a valid contender for any political post. In Nigeria right now, if I was to run for political office as a traditionalist, you can forget about it. Nobody's going to pay attention to me. They will call me a cultist. They will ban me to hell, whatever it is that they do to people like me. And if I'm not careful, somebody might just come in there and end my life just for standing up for my Africanness. So you're looking at a society, this damage was done a long time ago. Politics has a lot to do with it. Economics has a lot to do with it, because I guarantee you, if we had citizens that were educated, that understood the political and economic process, understood why they are in the condition that they're in, you wouldn't have this kind of stuff going on at this level that is going on right now. I'm not saying that you don't have little bitty cults and people that are going to just do things that are crazy, like in the United States. I don't know if they have it in Nigeria, but they have Christian churches here that play with snakes. You know the snake is dangerous. It's really a cult. They handle snakes, and from time to time, the snake bites the preacher or a member of the church, and the person dies. But they keep doing it, believing that Jesus, the blood of Christ, is going to protect them from the snake bite and all that, which it never protects them from anything anyway. They end up dying when they get bitten by the snake. So you have a society that believes that it's okay for you to jump out of an airplane without a parachute. We were made stupid, like Professor Okoro said, in the womb. And unless we have an incessant educational process to try to address some of this ignorance, the video you showed us about the women getting into the tub and taking a shower in church and all that stuff, I'm afraid that the next video that you show up with might make this one look like child's play.
Child's play. Well, Chair Dozier, let me ask you, not you did. Chair Dozier, both of you, I want you to think about what you saw in terms of when the man was spitting on the woman in an age of COVID-19. What are your thoughts on that? What kind of care does he have for the congregation?
I think Divya Ochaja has said it all. All I need to do is to create images, summaries of what he has said so that it can be understood clearly. Number one is that contemporary Africa has not succeeded in founding societies, because the essence of society is to have checks and balances, do's and don'ts, and regulations and rules and laws that regulate our freedom. Because freedom is to the extent allowed by the society. The average human being left alone is an animal. And that is to say, God did not create human beings. Human beings is the making of culture. And so, like we said from beginning, we need to find a way of revamping our culture, because our ancestors, we call them primitive, but they were more sophisticated than us because they live within the binds and the rules they created. True. Today, we are living in societies, not our own creation. And we are living everything on foreign gap, living in foreign, dressed in foreign robes, everything inside out is foreign. So we do not even understand the left from the right, forward from backward. So we are hanging between the blue sky and the deep sea. That's number one. So we need, the very first problem we need to address is that we have to recreate our society. That's the first task before us, so that we can have society that defines how everything is consummated. And once you go above that rule, those rules are rules stipulated, and we gazette it. They are the rules of God, like the Ten Commandments that the Christians have in the Bible. In a typical organized society, you will not have such things. That the second thing we have to fight against by going back to our culture is this disease called liberalism. That is the one problem with capitalism and all Western societies. If you look at this madness, you will hardly find it when you start going towards Europe, Israel, and places like India, China, Japan. You will hardly find this madness, because those societies have refused to allow the individual to dictate to the group. Because the problem with liberalism, capitalism, liberal democracy is that it wants the individual to take its idiosyncrasy, its inner wares, its inner abnormalities, private life, and use it to paint the public and dictate to the public what the public should do. Whereas the problem with Marxian socialism, or what they call advanced socialism, is that it stifles the freedom of the individual. communalism that our ancestors founded was talk about complementarity of the individual and the group. And so the question is about the little line between the individual and the group. And that's what Achebe meant when he said, before the white man came, we had things in common. But when he came, the little rope, the tiny rope that tied us together, the middle line, that's the thing about African spirituality. The white man put a razor to it, and since then we fell apart. We cannot rekindle that middle except to go back to our spirituality. And going back to our spirituality means that every other spirituality has to be anchored on the foundation, on the ground of African spirituality, because other people's spirituality cannot build that kind of communalism.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Our ancestors founded. Yeah. And that's the mistake. That's the mistake Nkrumah's, Nyerere's, and Zikiwe's made, trying to establish a new Africa on the ideologues and spirituality of Europe.
That's right.
That's where they got it wrong.
Yeah. In other words, what you're saying, quite frankly, what's unique about African spirituality, is the fact that it's very open.
It's open.
We believe in ChinEke, God, or Olodumare, whatever you call. But then we're very flexible. We have different ways and we don't fight over that. That's
and then again, there's this thinness. This thinness is that when you allow people the freedom of pluralism to understand themselves, there must be a rule to guide them. That is why if we are the only ones, Africans are the only ones that brought about the institution of Ofo. Eze is that rules and regulations that you must never trespass. Aro, Nansala, abominations and taboos.
Yeah, you know what? And that's quite frankly when even those who preach wherever they preach, if you present them with a fonogu,
they'll run away.
They run away. I did ask you a question. You have not answered that question. What are your thoughts? And what should people do? Because there's got to be something that we have to do. Beyond the fact that we have to go back to our roots, and that's very important. But what do we do when we see things that are wrong? We are in a pandemic, and this man is spitting on this woman. We don't know if he has COVID-19.
Yeah, part of what...
Do you understand what I'm saying? So because you've got a church where people are saying "Say," I mean, well, they don't say "Say," they say "Amen, amen." Their mindset is such that they feel that they're weak. They're defenseless. They're powerless against this man. So they fear this man more than they fear God.
Well, here's the thing, right? You ask the question, what should we do? What should we be talking about? What we should do is exactly what we're doing right now. We have to make people aware. We have to have forums that show these videos and talk about it. Because if you go to that lady right now and tell her anything about that preacher, she's going to think you're crazy. That's how they call them daddy, my daddy.
That's where their mind is.
So the only thing that we can do is what we're doing right now. We have to bring it to the attention of the public. We have to talk about it. We have to offer solutions. We have to create an environment where perhaps from an educational frame of reference, we begin to reach the local communities and warn them about these types of con men in the pulpit, while at the same time trying to develop some institutions that will start to teach what the professor was talking about, develop cultural alliances between those in political power, and traditional institutions where we have to have an understanding that before the European came to Africa, we had a political system, we had medical systems, we had social systems, we had civic systems, we had it all, judicial systems. Religion is the forebear of all human systems. All human systems are products of religion.
That's right.
Every single one of them. There were spiritual rules first that were in place before the society itself was formed. People had individual rules, then those rules filtered into your family. Then from your family filtered into the group, then the community, then states, and so on and so forth. All human systems are products of religion. To have a cohesive and coherent and society in Africa that is not really subject to the kind of corruption that you see in Western societies means that we have to understand that all human systems are product of religion. And if you follow African spirituality and all those moral engagements that we had before the European came, that dealt with how we dealt with one another, it dealt with marriages, it dealt with economics, synthesize it for the 21st century, create a political environment where these tenets are understood and implemented in our political process, then we begin to have a chance. Right now, the best thing we could do is what it is that we're doing right now, talking about it, exposing it in public forums such as this, and then trying to have some kind of political influence back home in every African society. Because right now, Christianity and Islam, they are the two spiritual institutions that have political clout in our political system, which, by the way, was borrowed from the European and the Arab, depending on where you are. So we need to really try to influence the political process in Africa through this kind of engagement that we're having right now, and be incessant about it, not apologetic about it, and just put it in every public forum that we possibly can put it into and discuss it till people start to lose their minds hearing it from us. Maybe then we will begin to get people to understand this level of stupidity, the damage that this level of stupidity is causing, our society, and the economic fallout from this way of thinking. But it really starts with us, and we have to continue what we're doing and be incessant about it.
Yeah, excellent. I want to read some of the comments that we've gotten. One is Nandi Osimiri. He talks about, and you guys can, add your thoughts to what he said. He says that there are societies that are solid because they still incorporate their culture as a base before the injection of any other outside influences, from business to religion.
Absolutely.
That's just
it sums it up right there. That's what I was just talking about.
That's what we were just talking about.
DB Ochaja said it all. You see, we need to do more awareness talk, more and more of it, and then post it. Let these talks be on social media, addressing the African. What is really happening here is public hypnotism. And we have to embark on a campaign of freeing people from this public hypnotism by preachers, letting the individual know personality and that you are your own oracle first, and should not submit your own oracle before the oracle of the other person. No other person has that precedence over you before Chukwu Okikabiama. We all are special children of God. So we have to embark on a journey of freeing people from public hypnotism, promoting self-awareness, and talking about the human personality, who we are, letting people know that the journey to wealth starts from self-discovery. And so once I discover myself within the world around me, even in the desert, I can create wealth. So once people begin to take a journey back into self-realization, self-actualization, self-understanding, they begin to the public hypnotism begins to deflate. And once that happens, then you're going to have more confident people, because what they do, the Pentecostalists and all these people who are involved in public hypnotism do, is that they gang up with the government, the politicians, they create an artificial situation of scarcity so that they can lash in on that, like Bob Marley said, they made the world so hard every day. You have to keep on suffering, that even before you can eat, you have to sell your brother, man.
Yes.
And so you say,
I'm sorry. I want you to hold that thought, because we are going to continue this conversation, but I want to stop here now. And give us an opportunity to share this video again. We'll be back next week.